Well, looks like another year's at an end, Dakar. Tell me, do you have any regrets?
Nah, not really. Well, there was a one thing. Do wish we did start that swimming club we always wanted to. That won't bite us in the rear anytime soon.
Uh, that's for sure. It's midnight. Let's refresh the page.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Recap Review. Today we're looking over set number 8929 Defilac and 8930 Dakar. The sets were released in early winter of 2007, contain approximately 37 pieces, and at time of release were about $5. Well, we have made it to 2007, and here we have some incredibly interesting Matoran builds. Story-wise, Defilac and Dakar are actually Matoran. Defilac being a Matoran of air, and Dakar a Matoran of stone, despite his very unusual color scheme. Defilac and Dakar both somehow wound up on Voyanui at some point, primarily because they were sent to the southern continent after Curzani messed with their bodies and decided to ship them off there. Well, Voyanui broke off from the southern continent, sending them up, but then a little portion of Voyanui got split off and was sent right back down. Unfortunately, this time into the water, where they were mutated by the mutaty water, and ended up residing down there. And here we have them, complete in all their wonderful custom glory. So we are going to go ahead and jump into the pros and the cons. I'd like to preface this by saying that these are pros and cons that I have heard over the years, and I do not necessarily agree with many, if all of them. I will mention when I do, but until then, just assume they're objective observations. Thank you very much. Let's start off with the pros. Right off the bat, their construction. The construction is incredibly unique, considering that it is, for the first time, some of the most unique construction we've seen. These guys contain very few new pieces. In fact, only really one new mold, specifically being this blade piece in silver. Otherwise, they both reuse pieces from prior waves of Bionicle. They do feature recolors, which many would consider to be a pro, specifically their masks. And I'm sure that these arm pieces, well, no, they're not really recolors either. Probably the Borak legs on Defilac, although I'm fairly confident that came out in some sort of castle set quite a while back. So really their masks are the primary recolor, specifically the Kowalsi on him and the Pikhuki. Fudge, I'm going to hear about it in the comments for this one. Bottom line, we get this mask new in Keat Orange, as opposed to silver as it's originally released in, and we get this mask in Metru Green, as opposed to gold. So that's really great. The construction and the new recolors are definite pros, specifically because it's just an enjoyable build. And the outlook is really great. I mean, it's a very solid construction. There are a few gaps here and there, but the color scheme is quite cohesive, having their primaries and then a bunch of metallic and grayer tones, while keeping it all looking nice. Another pro many would consider would be their articulation. 2 points in the legs and 1 in the arm, and as well as 1 in the head. You could consider the air launcher up here to be a point of articulation, which would be 2, but I'll leave that up to you guys. So a definite pro would probably be their articulation, which, be it limited, still exists, and it's nice to see. You can actually get them in quite some dynamic poses, like standing, and sitting. So they will pose relatively well. Granted, it's not the best posability, but they're Matoran, so be it that the case, they're small, compact, and easy to manipulate. There's several good-looking poses. So Bionicle fans back in the day were very happy to see these custom builds, and as such, can definitely be considered a pro. Now, the pro many would consider would be their color schemes, specifically how consistent they are. They're clone sets through and through, but be it that the case, they do a good job of keeping a consistent and cohesive color scheme. They differentiate just enough to have characteristics and personalities of their own, which is really great to see. Another pro would be their functions. And granted, these guys are from 07, so their function pretty much is only comprised of the air launchers of their shoulders. Now, this is nothing new. This is just a Zamor launcher retitled in the new story for 2007, and it works just the same way. You take your 2 index fingers and your thumb, hold it like that, and have fun finding it, as per usual. They work, as per expected, very well, which is nice to see. Other pros would consist of their new molds, this new weapon piece that we would eventually get tired of seeing. But we have it, and it is nice to see. It was used a lot after its release, but that's alright, because it is a very nice looking piece, and it's very unique in its own right. So those are the general pros that many would agree on, and many have said over the years. They're fairly solid builds. Sure, they can be a little bit gappy, but they feature new recolors of masks that a lot of people really enjoyed, new weapon molds, and custom builds of which construction is very solid, and a lot of fun to play with. They're parts packs primarily, but that's not a bad thing, because they're good looking parts packs. That's what's important. Now that the pros are out of the way, let's get into the cons. What make these sets a little less worth getting back in the day? Right off the bat, they are definitely gappy. They have several gaps right along their collarbone, right there, and you can see through them, unfortunately, very clearly. Not to mention their lack of eyes, which can be considered a con for sure. They have no eyes. They look dead inside. Exactly like the MahriToran, which is what they were in the story. Granted, set-wise, that's not a good thing, and they lack a lot of characteristic because they have no eyes. That could have very easily been implanted, and were implanted in sets very similar to these in the future. So it's a shame to see that happen. Another con many have believed to have said is that these are clone sets through and through. You get one, you have the other. Now, the recolors make up for this fact, but they are still clone sets. Others believe that a con would be their Zamor launchers, air blasters, considering they're gimmicky. Not to mention, the Zamor spheres, of which these sets came with 2 each, do fall out incredibly easily, considering there is no top cover on either launcher, despite its installation being incredibly simple. Other cons would be their lack of articulation in their elbows, and knees for that matter, considering they used parts from 2001 and 2002, and those had no arm articulation, nor knee articulation. They do have neck articulation, which is nice, but even still, limited amount of posing. On that same note, they have no hands, having only axle sockets for their weapons. Another con would definitely be their lack of back armor, of which is entirely non-existent. It is a well-constructed back, don't get me wrong. However, it is incredibly gappy, and you can see right in there. So, it is unfortunate to see that being the case. And another con I'm sure many would agree with would be their blue pins, which unfortunately are still here. The blue pins detract from the overall cohesion of these sets, considering their color schemes comprise of their primary color, Keto Orange and Metro Green, silver, black, and a little bit of gray. Unfortunately, the blue breaks it up, and it's unfortunate to see that, because it is, your eyes are attracted to these brighter colors, the Zamor and the blue pins. So it's unfortunate to see those pieces break such cohesion. They also, at times, unfortunately have very poor balance, but for the most part, they're fairly stable. So that about wraps up the cons. What do we have right now? Honestly, these sets are incredibly solid. They feature constructions which are very unique to them, they're very custom, and they're very unique for their own right. They do lack majorly in the articulation department, specifically in their elbows and knees, however make up for that with new molds, new recolors, and just enough articulation to get them into some dynamic posing, which ups their playability factor. Honestly, if you can find these Matoran online, definitely pick them up. they're worth it. They're really nice collector's items, and they are very solid Matoran, despite their flaws, gappiness, and lack of articulation. Many will disagree and are free to disagree. What's your favorite Matoran? Let us know either in the comments below or on the TTV message boards. And if you want to learn more about these guys, head on over to Biosector 01. That's Bionicle Sector 01. Very, very solid wiki for Bionicle. Best there is. Very accurate. And tons of information. Very accurate information. So go ahead and check those two places out. And we'll see you next week. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If there's anything you feel I missed, should have mentioned, or messed up on, please let me know, either on the TTV message boards or the comments. You get the idea. Thank you all for watching, and join me next week when I look over the Hydruka. Thank you all for watching. See you then.